Hi there, I'm Reverend Nate Melcher, and on behalf of Richfield United Methodist Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, thank you for being a part of this video series discussing the book, Everything Good About God is True by Bruce Reyes-Chow. These videos are designed to be perennial and asynchronous, meaning watch them anytime at your pace. As we discuss the book, I encourage you to journal your thoughts, leave a comment, or better yet, share with a friend. Special thanks to Bruce Reyes-Chow for permission to use his work in this video series. And with that, let's get to our next section. We are halfway through our video series here with Chapter 10. It's never too late to go back if you missed one. Chapter 10 is called Revealed, and as always, we think about what does that one-word title mean in our own lives? What does that mean to you? To me, revealed is kind of a fancy word. You set out a hot dish, you do not reveal the hot dish, right? Behold, I have revealed the hot dish. But that would be fun. Behold, I reveal unto thee the hot dish. I hope God reveals good things to you. So how do you take that word? I'm going to go to page 93 in the book, right where the chapter starts. And Bruce writes about his experience going off to college. In the summer of 1987, I was getting ready to leave home and head to college. I had been accepted to the University of California at Irvine, about a 7-hour drive away. Preparations were in full gear. My roommate had been assigned, I had begun selecting classes, and I had just broken up with my girlfriend because I was, quote, not ready for long-distance relationships. Good Lord, I was melodramatic. So many changes and transitions were ahead of me. I was excited for college and ready to begin the next stage of life, and then I got a call from my dad. For years, the understanding was that he was going to pay most of my college expenses. My mom had raised me on child support of $50 a month, welcome to 1970s single motherhood, so it always seemed fair that college would be his turn to really step up. One day he called me and cut right to the chase. He didn't have the money to pay for college. I could not believe it. Looking back now as a parent, I cannot imagine how difficult it must have been for him to make that call. That day, however, I was devastated and I could not see beyond my own anger and disappointment. I'd already begun to say my goodbyes to friends. Imagine my ex's shock when she found out I didn't actually leave. My plan from high school to university to law school to career in politics was derailed. And he does talk about how as life went on, here he is, strong as a person despite that. And yet, going through that was really difficult. When Bruce's dad doesn't have the money for college the way that he thought he would, it was devastating, right? I'm sure it was likely he knew years before, but only when the due date arrived did he say anything. How often do we put off bad news? I used to teach college English where so many students waited until the very last minute to write their essays, only to be floored when they received a bad grade. And I know people who hold off on doing the work until the last second, or they actively put off planning for their future because they got to focus on the present. But we can do better than that. Work in the present isn't easy, but it can pay off later. And even if it doesn't, at least you tried and you made the most of the present. On page 95, Bruce talks about judging pastors. Here we go. I try not to judge how other pastors do their work, but my super judgy gene gets activated when I hear or see pastors doing things that I think are dangerous or hurtful for those who are called to serve. They are called to serve. One of my pet peeves around pastoral care is the phrase, everything happens for a reason. As I mentioned, I believe that it's a dangerous theological concept. Believing that God had a plan, that generations would have suffered, argues against the God of love and hospitality in whom I choose to believe. I believe struggle and despair can be transformed into liberation and hope. Our ancestors often listened for God through the struggles playing out all around them, and that faith defined them. The gift of the past is not that people learn to suffer through some play orchestrated by God. Rather, seeing how our forebears lived out God's story in the midst of their suffering helps us to seek God in the midst of ours. I agree with Bruce. I am very over people, especially faith leaders, talking about God's plan and everything happens for a reason, these other non-biblical platitudes that can do more harm than good. So when someone passes away, perhaps suddenly and tragically, there is not a good answer. So saying everything happens for a reason in the midst of that, please don't say that. We don't always know why things happen. Don't claim that sort of stuff. It's the same with Bruce and his dad not coming through on college. If someone was to say to him, well, everything happens for a reason, it's part of God's plan, that doesn't help Bruce in that moment, right? And in looking back, he has seen how that moment has helped to forge him into the person he is today. But that's something he gets to say about his journey, as opposed to we just tell him that's the way it is. He writes a bit in his faith montage, this is on page 96, about God's story being revealed. And if you know it in the moment or if you know it later and what you deal with it, the question is, how will the story be revealed? It says this: the story will meander, but God's time is God's time. The story will confuse, but God will guide us if we choose to follow. The story will contradict, but God's perfection lies in a willingness to change. The story will be deemed weak, but God reimagines what is powerful. The story will seem like a distant figure emerging from the mist-worn fog, but when we see God, we really see God, and we will know, and the story will be revealed. I know people who wish that they knew the future. Even I've been there. But if you knew the future, what would you really do with that? I think it maybe would make us more miserable. Things get revealed as life goes on. How we are open or closed off to this, it speaks volumes about our relationship with the mysteries of life. How is that going for you? How comfortable are you with mystery? I know that some mysteries are harder than others, but overall, what's your comfort level with it as life unfolds, as God's story reveals itself? I love the Psalms, these poems and songs to God. You get to really hear people in their raw emotion. If we go to Psalm 13, here's a really raw one. And this is for all the people who say you can't be angry at God. Listen to this writer here, Psalm 13. How long will you forget me, Lord? Forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I be left to my own wits? Agony filling my heart daily? How long will my enemy keep defeating me? Look at me. Answer me, Lord my God. Restore sight to my eyes. Otherwise I'll sleep the sleep of death, and my enemy will say, I won. My foe will rejoice over my downfall. And then there's this part, almost like a breath. But I have trusted in your faithful love. My heart will rejoice in your salvation. Yes, I will sing to the Lord, because the Lord has been good to me. The writer cries out to God, where are you? This is terribly painful. Where are you? Have you ever felt that kind of energy before? I have. And then there's like this turn, almost like in a sonnet, the poem. It's like the writer takes a breath and settles back into steadiness of faith and hope. God is still at work, even in this misery. God never promises to stop the misery. God does promise to be with us through it. Okay? I know someone who told me that they stopped believing in God because when they were a child, they prayed for a particular Christmas present and they didn't get that Christmas present. Therefore, there is not a God, therefore why believe? That was how they came about it. I know someone else who stopped going to church because they didn't think that they were being treated special enough. They didn't say those words, but it's kind of what they were getting at. I know someone else who stopped reading the Bible because they saw that others in the Bible were having these miracles, but they didn't feel like they were having any miracles. And all of these are tough. These are all hard. And yet, for all of these and more, there was some level of miserableness in the mystery. Like things weren't working out the way that they wanted or on the timeline that they wanted. Things were still being revealed. And I've had those tough moments of trying to endure in the midst of revealing, and I'm sure you have too. So what does it mean to trust? To trust God as things are revealed. Perhaps even only in the looking back on your life story with God. Can you trust in that? In every chapter of the book, Bruce invites us to reflect on 4 questions at 4 levels of our life. Individual, your own life. Communal, your life with others. Practical, living out life. And montage, articulating your life's wisdom. I encourage you to respond by journaling, leaving a comment, and best yet, share with someone you trust. Let's begin now. Reflect, individual. What have you been taught about God's plan? Communal. How have you seen God's story being revealed in communities of which you are a part? Practical. Name a situation or experience that you now believe was part of God's revealed story. Montage. What are a few things that you believe about God's revealing story? Finally, every chapter of the book ends with a prayer called Breathe. We will inhale with a simple phrase, and we will exhale with a simple phrase. Let us pray. Inhale, sometimes I am lost. Exhale, Spirit, guide me home. Thank you for being a part of this video discussion series presented by Richfield United Methodist Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Get your copy of Everything Good About God is True by Bruce Reyes-Chow wherever books are sold. Support the ministries of this church by subscribing to the channel and sharing the video. You can sign up for our email list to be part of outreach efforts in the neighborhood and across the world. And please consider financially supporting the ministries of this church today. Thank you for being here, and I hope you had a good experience. And until we meet again, let us live in faith, justice, and joy. Amen.